Good morning. Thank you for coming. Good morning. All right. Well, we wanted to be respectful of your time. I know your time is valuable. Since we are all using this for post-reading strategies, we wanted to make sure that you left with something that you could use in your classroom. Okay. The purpose is, again, for the post-reading, after they read an article or a poem or whatever you're using in your classroom, the question is, did the student understand it? And so the two strategies that we're going to give to you today are we're going to give you the RAFT, graphic organizer, and we're also going to review exit slips. And for us as educators, we can understand whether or not a student understood the material, both formative and summative, meaning, you know, the exit slip can be very informal, quick summary, and then the summative would be more the RAFT because it kind of digs more into the material. All right, I'm going to give it away to Dale for the exit slips. Oh.
I don't care. Exit slips, real simple. It's just something designed at the end of the block or the end of your lesson, whatever part of that lesson it is. You give an idea, you understood what it is you're talking about or what you read about. It can be something as simple as write a tweet from one person to another, so 140 characters, which is kind of, something for other kids. Or it could be something more of if you have more questions about this, or you can give them what is this person talking to that person, just something to get an idea so that when you're looking at it, you know, yes, they have it, or no, they don't have it. That is really the basis of the design. It's not intended to be anything really, really long, not intended to be anything really, really involved. It's just to give you a real good snapshot type of thing of what they're doing. Here's an example of one thing you learned today, how today's lesson is used in the real world. Question? I didn't understand blank. Write one question about today's lesson. Really what responders figure out something like the group actually working. Well, that was nothing to do with the reading thing, but that has been known also. The exit slip is that it can be that simple. You can make it more involved if you want, but it can really be that simple. I have all 3 by 5 cards here, not to give you an exit slip, but just to be that simple. Okay, and so the next piece that we have that's separate from is called RAFT papers, or just RAFT. And RAFT is an acronym for Role, Audience, Format, and Topic. Some of you may be familiar with the RAFT. You may have seen this in other presentations, but I'm going to try to be as thorough as I can. As I was thinking about RAFTs, both this morning and since our last presentation, I've tried to think of a couple of things that you might be familiar with, and I'm going to ask you to search your memory here. If you remember a program, some of you may have even watched as you were raising kids or when you were a kid, called Schoolhouse Rock. You guys remember that program? And one in particular that I remember from Schoolhouse Rock was How a Bill Becomes a Law. And in the cartoon, you would have this bill, actual piece of paper that was kind of had a mouth on it, and it had eyes, and it was talking to you, and it actually sang a song. And during I think it was maybe about a 7 to 15-minute program, it explained to the audience how it went from being just a written document, and then it became a law. And when I watched that, I remember as a kid thinking, wow, it's a lot more complicated than I at first thought. And so, but that's a really good example of a RAFT. You've got a role, You've got this bill is talking from the standpoint of a piece of paper that is trying to convey and become something that's established within society. And you've got an audience, and the audience would be kids. We're trying to understand what this is in a way and in a tone and in a format. It's just a little speech. It's a little kind of something that we're all familiar with giving, because we do speeches every day. The topic, of course, is how a bill becomes a law. So it's just a neat little package that students can learn. Another example that I thought of was when I first was married, and we were kind of traveling around the United States taking our kids places. We went to a place called Epcot. You guys remember Epcot? Down in Disney. And Epcot, you could go to these videos. And in one of the videos, I remember bacteria would be on the screen talking to, there'd be usually like this energy man or somebody like that, and this bacteria would kind of talk and say, this is my role, and it would explain to energy man and the rest of the audience what bacteria did and the role of it and how it worked in the human body. And again, that's just another example of a raft that's put into a cartoon form. So when you think about that, and I kind of raise those examples so that you can kind of see what that looks like, you are going to be trying to create a raft if you get to the end of an assignment. Perhaps it's a biology textbook, the page that you're reading, or if it's a novel that you're reading, or it's a political document that you're reading, then the idea is to create some type of assignment. It's a writing assignment that it forces the kid to look at it from a different role, and to aim for a particular audience. And the topic or the content is always going to be set. It's going to be what you're studying for that day. It's going to be what you read for that assignment. Okay? So you guys all have a packet. If you could take this out and flip to the second page, and I'm going to point out a couple of things. And again, the packet, the first page is we're going to get to that. That's our assignment. But the second page actually has some separate raft. We're going to call these choice boards. I think you guys are familiar with choice boards. If you're not, a choice board is just a listing of assignments that a student might choose from. But the very first choice board says examples of a raft assignment. And you have on the left, it says role. It's got all kinds of different ones there. Newspaper reporter, lawyer, Abe Lincoln's on there, frontier woman, constituent. So this is just a smattering. And this is just an example because as you move across the spreadsheet, it says audience. And so then you're picking an audience there. The format, you've got an obituary there, an appeal speech, news column, diary, letter, news release, just kind of going down that list. And then the very last one is the topic. And again, that's the one that's always going to be set. Okay, that's the one it's always going to be the topic that you're studying in class that day. All right. So moving from that generic list, go down to the bottom of that first page, and you're going to see raft examples for math. So if you're a math content person, then this is specifically something that you might do or you might use. And again, there are some examples there where you have the role of 0 to an audience of whole numbers. The format's a campaign speech, and it's the importance of the number 0. All right. If you go ahead and turn that page to the back. And on the back, you have another spreadsheet there. It says raft examples for science. And again, this would be a choice board. You've got, I like that first one, you're a water drop, you're talking to other water drops, you're creating a travel guide, and you're explaining a journey through the water cycle. Now I'm going to stop here for a minute because that is, when you really think about it, that's really kind of an odd way to present an assignment. And rafts are often used to differentiate content. If you have some students in your classroom that are struggling with some of the traditional ways that you're presenting information and they're just not absorbing it, then a raft is a different way to get at that. It asks kids to think outside the box. It tags some of the higher level thinking skills that you want to tag. So you should consider rafts from that standpoint. It might not be something that you do every day, or it might not be something that you do as part of your main instruction, but it could be a piece of writing that you bring along to help kids scaffold through some difficult concepts or things that they're struggling with. The last example of a raft there is for social studies. In that very first one, you've got Sacagawea to Jean-Baptiste, and it's a letter on the travels of Lewis and Clark. So again, that sounds to me like a standards-based social studies assignment. And then the next page, if you look at that, it says Appendix B. And we included this just because, here are a whole bunch of forms that you could use, advertisement, affidavits, graffiti, and these are all different formats that kids could write in. and you'll notice a lot of non-standard formats there. So that's just for you to use when you think about, well, how could kids show me that, what format could they show that they've learned this information in? Right? And then the very last page I would like you to take a look at, and it looks a little bit more like a formal traditional writing assignment. And it says raft paper. It has a 4-box role, audience, format, and topic. And this is actually a science assignment, and this is not a choice board. This is an assignment that you might use with your entire class. Okay? The other choice board, you could, as you know, if you've used choice boards before, you know that choice is a very powerful tool in the classroom. You could create, you have to create it, but you could create a choice board of raft topics and audiences, and you could do all the work yourself, okay, and then you present that to the kids, and then they choose it. Another way would be for them to take an assignment, and this is if you've been able to work with them a little bit and have them understand the topic. You could actually, after a few reading assignments, you could have them create the role, the format, the audience, and the topics. Have them create, give them the spreadsheet, have them create it, and then they choose their own. Or if you want to go a little bit safer route, more traditional, you could actually just give them one assignment. And in this particular assignment on that last page, it says, you know, in class we've discussed how human genes are inherited and what can go wrong to produce genetic disorders. And then the instructor here is presenting a film called Lorenzo's Oil. And so in this particular assignment, you control everything. The kids, you're going to, on the assignments that you get back, they're all going to look like and be in this one format. Okay, it's a little bit different. So this might be a way to begin rafts if you wanted to with your whole class. And then on the back, you'll see that there's a rubric. Always nice to have a rubric for the kids when you're giving a writing assignment. Not required, but it's a nice piece to have with it, and that gives the kids an idea of what's expected. So again, I just want to emphasize with the raft paper that it is a nice differentiation tool. It is a little bit different than some of the other reading strategies that we have because, you know, it's not something that, I mean, it's a writing piece, right? And so you get done reading something and you're asking for a piece of writing, but it taps on the after reading because the kids are considering what they've read in class. Okay. Well, what we hope that you had brought with you today, and we'd ask that you brought a piece of content, and if you would go back to that very first page, and if you don't have a piece of content, you can think about what you're using today or what you're using this week and use that as well. But we would like you to take just a few minutes here and fill out and create a differentiated raft choice board for yourself. And I've done a couple of examples up here. Let me see if I can pull these up. All right. So this is one that I've filled out, and I kind of just put some random things that I thought, well, these are kind of things in the news. And but the first one that I put down was Andre Carson and he's writing to the residents of Ferguson. He's writing a letter, and he's going to write about the topic of the Bill of Rights. So it's the social studies. Okay. The second one, this was kind of interesting. Mike Pence was in the news a couple of weeks ago, and his audience would be high school seniors, and he's writing an advice column about the Bill of Rights. He's taking a little heat for that. And then Susan B. Anthony, I kind of pulled her out. Let's differentiate there. 1963 Civil Rights Marcher. She's writing a letter, and again, Bill of Rights is a common theme. Kind of picked this for social studies also. Martin Luther King would be a role. President Obama, he's writing to just the president, and he's writing a complaint. And I don't know, maybe he's got something that he could complain about. And again, the Bill of Rights. And then the next one here, LBJ, former president. And in the audiences, he's just writing to himself. That's kind of an interesting turn there. And he's writing in the format of a diary. And again, his own thoughts about the Bill of Rights. And again, so what kind of knowledge would the kids be demonstrating as they pick these topics and write about them? And then the last one, kind of interesting in the news, Listeria bacteria. This would be a science one. Bluebell shareholders would be the audience. The format would be a Facebook page. So you can actually go and get into some other electronic, non-traditional formats, right? And then how to make people very ill. And that's all I have. So if you guys would just take a few minutes to fill these out. Mrs. Fowler, Mr. Darlidge, and I will kind of filter out and help you guys if you have any questions. But I